I always believed that big cities were loud only on the outside. Cars, horns, crowds, that kind of noise. But when I first stepped into this city, I learned something else. The real noise comes from people who think they own the world. People who believe their voice is the only one that matters. People who silence others just because they can. My name is Aurelia, and this is the truth I learned the hard way. I came here with dreams that were much bigger than my apartment. A single room on the 5th floor of an old building with thin walls and a noisy elevator that rarely worked. Still, every night I told myself, I didn't come here to live easy. I came here to live with purpose. I always wanted to help people, especially those who felt unseen. That dream led me to a small legal support center in the middle of downtown. I didn't work as a lawyer. I wasn't even close. I was just an assistant who handled documents, calls, and schedules, but it mattered to me. Every file I touched belonged to someone searching for justice. My first few weeks were filled with hope. The office wasn't fancy, but it was alive. People walked in with heartbreak, fear, and confusion, and somehow left with a little bit of courage. I felt proud knowing I played a small part in that. But hope has a fragile voice, and it doesn't take much to drown it. For me, that drowning began with one woman, Helena. Helena was the type of person who made the whole room shift when she entered. Not because she was special, but because everyone feared her. She walked with perfect heels, perfect hair, and a perfect smile that hid something sharp underneath. At first, I thought she was confident. Later, I learned she was ruthless. The very first time she spoke to me, she looked me up and down like she was measuring how useful I could be, then said, "If you want to survive here, don't make mistakes. I don't tolerate them." She didn't say it loudly, but the words hit me like a slap. I tried my best to stay invisible around her. I kept my head down, did my work, and avoided her office whenever possible. But the strange thing about people like Helena is this: they can smell honesty from a distance, and they hate it. It's like truth threatens their power. One ordinary Wednesday afternoon, that truth walked right into my hands in the form of a thin folder placed on my desk by mistake. Inside it were documents that didn't make sense, edited case notes, missing signatures, mismatched dates, and financial figures that looked like someone had scraped numbers out with a knife. My heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I looked, the clearer it became. Someone was tampering with legal files that belonged to real people fighting real battles. I remember sitting frozen, staring at the papers, telling myself, "Aurelia, don't get involved. Stay quiet. This is too big for you." But deep down I knew the truth. Silence protects the wrong people. And Helena was the wrong person. Before I could decide what to do, she appeared behind me like a shadow. Her voice sliced through the air. "Why are you holding that? Who told you to touch it?" I turned around, trying to keep my hands steady, but she already knew I had seen something I shouldn't have. That was the moment she marked me as her enemy. For the next week, she tried everything to push me out. She insulted me in front of others, gave me impossible tasks, blamed me for mistakes I didn't make. I could feel my confidence shrinking a little more every day. My co-workers looked away whenever Helena spoke to me. Not because they agreed with her, because they were afraid of becoming her next target. I would go home exhausted, sit on my bed, and whisper to myself, maybe she's right. Maybe I'm not strong enough for this city. But something inside me refused to break. The turning point came on a Friday morning. The office was busy, people rushing, phones ringing, papers everywhere. I was taking notes for a client when Helena suddenly stormed toward me. In front of everyone, she shouted, "Aurelia can't handle even basic work. She's holding this office back." People stopped talking. No one looked at me, but I felt every eye listening. My throat tightened. My hands shook. Helena wasn't correcting me, she was crushing me. When she walked away, laughing quietly with another manager, I felt tears burning my eyes. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear. But then a small thought rose inside me, quiet but firm: if I walk away now, she wins. Not just over me, but over everyone she has hurt. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. That was the moment I decided. I may not have power, but I have truth. And truth is louder than fear. The weekend after Helena humiliated me felt heavier than any burden I had ever carried. I tried cleaning my apartment, cooking something warm, even going for a walk, but no matter what I did, the memory replayed in my head like an unwanted echo. Her voice, her laughter, the way everyone froze, it all stayed with me. My chest felt tight every time I thought about going back to work. But despite everything, a small part of me kept whispering, "You didn't deserve that, Aurelia. You didn't do anything wrong." On Sunday night, as I sat on the edge of my bed, something in me finally shifted. I opened my tiny desk drawer and pulled out the copied notes I had taken from the folder, the mismatched dates, the missing signatures, the altered statements. I hadn't shown them to anyone yet. I was scared. What if I misunderstood the documents? What if confronting the truth destroyed my job? What if Helena destroyed me first? But the more I stared at the papers, the more certain I became. Someone was manipulating people's cases, and it wasn't a small mistake. It was intentional. And if Helena could scream at me in public just for holding those files, then she had something to hide. The next morning, I walked into the office with my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every step felt like walking on glass. Most people avoided my eyes, not because they disliked me, but because they feared being associated with someone Helena had marked as weak. I sat at my desk, organizing files, trying to stay invisible. But inside, I wasn't the same anymore. I wasn't scared the way I was on Friday, I was angry. Around noon, Helena walked past my desk. She didn't even look at me, she didn't need to. Her presence alone carried a silent threat, like she owned every breath inside the room. She said something to another manager, and they laughed loudly as if to remind me how small I was. I lowered my gaze, but I didn't allow myself to crumble this time. I had seen the truth. And truth has a strange way of giving strength, even when everything else feels impossible. Later that afternoon, as I was sorting client requests, a man approached my desk. He was older, kind-eyed, wearing a simple shirt with sleeves rolled up. I recognized him, Evan, one of the volunteer lawyers who visited once a week. He spoke gently, "Are you all right? You look like you're carrying something heavy." His voice was calm, not intrusive, just human. And somehow, that kindness broke something inside me. I hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "Can I talk to you, privately?" He nodded without asking any questions. We stepped into one of the small meeting rooms. My hands were shaking when I placed the documents on the table. Evan studied them carefully, his expression slowly shifting from curiosity, to concern, to disbelief. After a few minutes, he looked up at me and said quietly, "Aurelia, these aren't small errors. This is manipulation. Someone is altering official case records." My breath caught in my chest. Hearing it from someone knowledgeable made the truth heavier, real. Evan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. "Who had access to these files?" he asked. I knew the answer before he finished the question. "Helena," I said. My voice barely came out. Evan's jaw tightened. "If she's behind this, she's violating legal rights. This is serious. People could go to jail for much less than this." For a moment, the room felt too cold. Too quiet. Too sharp. Fear wrapped around me again, but this time it came with clarity. If I stayed silent, I would become part of the wrongdoing. If I spoke up, I might lose my job, or worse, Helena might destroy my reputation entirely. But Evan looked at me with steady confidence. "Aurelia, listen. People like Helena depend on silence. If you speak the truth, you won't be alone, not if you handle it the right way." I swallowed hard. "What do I do?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Document everything. Dates, conversations, emails, copies of papers, as much as you can gather. You don't confront her directly. You don't tell anyone you don't trust. You protect yourself first. When the time comes, you file an official complaint. But only when you're prepared." Hearing those words changed something inside me. It felt like someone had finally reminded me that I wasn't powerless. I had truth. And truth could become my shield if I held it carefully. Before he left, Evan placed a hand gently on the table and said, "Aurelia, I know you're scared. But don't underestimate what one honest person can do." His words stayed with me long after he walked out. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Everyone had already left, and the entire building was quiet except for the soft hum of the lights. I opened drawer after drawer, checking files, comparing dates, looking for patterns. The more I found, the more my heart sank. Helena wasn't just cruel, she was dangerous. She had altered client statements. And then I found something that made my stomach twist, a file with a client's signature forged. Not poorly forged. Perfectly forged. The kind of forgery done by someone who had practiced it many times. I stared at the signature, feeling a chill run down my spine. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't carelessness. This was criminal. That night, when I finally stepped out into the cold city air, I felt my fear mixing with determination. The skyscrapers looked taller than usual, towering over me like silent witnesses. The city felt bigger, harsher, more dangerous, but also clearer. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overreacting. I was standing in the middle of something dark, and the only way out was through the truth. As I walked home, I whispered to myself, "I'm going to fight. I don't know how yet, but I will." I didn't know then how long the fight would last. I didn't know how much pain Helena would cause before falling. I didn't know how strong I would have to become. But that night, under the city lights, I took my first real step toward justice. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope suspended above a storm. I went to work every morning with a calm face, but inside my chest everything trembled. I pretended to type, pretended to organize folders, pretended to listen when people spoke, but all I could think about was the truth I was hiding in my bag. Every time I passed Helena's office, I felt her presence like a shadow pressing against my back. She didn't yell at me during those days. She didn't insult me. She didn't even look at me. And somehow, that silence was more terrifying than her words. It felt like she knew something. It felt like she was watching me from behind closed doors. It felt like she was waiting for me to make a mistake. But instead of breaking, I kept gathering evidence. Slowly. Quietly. Carefully. I wrote down every inconsistent file I found, saved email threads, took screenshots, and dated every discovery. I didn't trust anyone except Evan, and even then, I met him only once more that week, outside the office, in a small cafe far from downtown. I handed him copies of what I had found. He didn't smile. He didn't congratulate me. He only said, "You're doing the right thing, Aurelia. But be prepared, people like Helena don't fall quietly." His words stayed with me. That Friday, something happened that confirmed everything he warned me about. The office was unusually silent that morning. When I walked in, people were gathered in small groups, whispering. I could feel tension hanging in the air like thick fog. As I reached my desk, one of my coworkers, a woman who never spoke much to me before, leaned slightly closer and whispered, "Be careful today. Helena looks angry." My heart dropped. Before I could even sit down, Helena walked out of her office, her heels striking the floor like warning shots. Her smile was thin, sharp, almost trembling with rage. "Aurelia," she said loudly, "I need to see you in my office. Now." Every head in the room lowered. No one made eye contact with me. No one said anything. I felt their fear, the same fear I had lived with every day. I swallowed hard and followed Helena, closing the door behind me. She didn't sit. She didn't breathe. She turned toward me like a storm. "What have you been doing?" she whispered, her voice cold enough to freeze my spine. "You think I don't notice when someone snoops into my files? You think I don't know when someone tries to be a hero?" My mouth dried. I could barely speak. I haven't done anything wrong." Her voice grew louder. Sharper. Crueler. She paced in front of me like she was circling prey. "I built this place. I decide what happens here. And I can make your life disappear with a single report. Do you understand that? A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to run. But I remembered Evan's words, people like Helena depend on silence. So instead of breaking, I lifted my chin and forced myself to breathe. Helena, I said quietly, I haven't done anything wrong. And I don't deserve to be treated like this. For a moment, disbelief flashed across her face, like no one had ever spoken to her that way before. Her expression twisted instantly into fury. Get out, she snapped. And be ready. Because I'm done being patient. I walked out of her office on shaking legs, but something inside me felt stronger. Helena had finally shown her fear, and fear was something she hid only when she felt threatened. The rest of the day, whispers spread around the office. People watched Helena's door. Managers exchanged worried glances. Something had changed. The balance had shifted. Helena's anger wasn't just about me, she sensed danger. She sensed exposure. By evening, I made a decision I had been avoiding. It was time. I took my folder of evidence, held it close to my chest, and walked straight to the administrative building 4 blocks away. My legs felt weak, my palms wet, but I didn't stop. I kept repeating to myself, truth is on your side. You're not doing this for revenge. You're doing this for justice. When I reached the office, I sat across from the internal investigator, my voice trembling but steady enough to speak the truth. I handed over every document, every screenshot, every note. The investigator listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each page he turned. When I finished, he leaned back and said in a low voice, Aurelia, this isn't just workplace misconduct. This is a criminal pattern. You did the right thing coming forward. I felt a wave of relief. And then fear. And then something deeper, courage. Walking out of that building felt like stepping into a new life. The sky was cloudy, the streets crowded, the city loud, but for the first time, I felt like I was walking with purpose. Like I wasn't invisible anymore. But the fight was far from over. Because the moment Helena learned I had reported her, she would come for me with everything she had. And she did. The storm arrived faster than I expected. I thought I would have time, at least a few days before Helena discovered what I had done. But powerful people don't stay blind for long. The morning after I filed the complaint, the office felt strangely cold when I entered. People avoided my eyes more than usual. The air felt thick, like everyone knew something was coming but didn't want to admit it. I sat at my desk quietly, pretending to sort files, when Helena stepped into the room. The clicking of her heels echoed like a warning. She looked calm. Too calm. Her smile was thin, sharp, and controlled. It was the kind of smile someone wears when they're about to destroy something. Aurelia, she said loudly, her voice slicing through the room. In my office. Now. No one even pretended not to stare this time. I stood slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady. My hands felt numb as I walked toward her door. She closed it behind me with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. Then she turned toward me with a look that sent a chill down my spine. So, she whispered, you think you're brave? She took a step closer, her eyes burning. You think you can go behind my back and make false accusations about me? My breath caught. She knew. Helena, Shut up, she snapped. You're not going to speak. You're going to listen. She walked behind her desk and picked up a piece of paper, a printed letter. She threw it toward me. You're fired. My heart dropped. The paper fluttered against my chest and fell to the floor. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Fired. Just like that. No discussion. No meeting. No due process. She wanted to erase me before the truth could surface. I warned you, Helena said with satisfaction. I told you I could make your life disappear. And you still tried to challenge me. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I forced myself not to cry. Not here. Not in front of her. Helena, I said softly, this isn't right. She laughed, a sharp, cold sound. Right? You think this city cares about what's right? You're naive, Aurelia. You're small. You're replaceable. And you will never win. For a moment, I felt the old fear return, the suffocating kind that tightens around your chest and makes you shrink. But then something unexpected happened. A quiet strength rose inside me. A strength I had earned through every humiliation, every insult, every moment I chose truth over fear. I'm not scared of you anymore, I said. My voice didn't shake. Helena's smile vanished. For the first time, she looked nervous. It was only for a second, but I saw it, the crack in her armor. She quickly straightened her posture. Get out of my office, she demanded. But I didn't move. Instead, I said the words she never expected to hear. They already have the evidence, Helena. You can't stop what's coming. Her eyes widened. A flash of panic passed across her face. She stepped toward me, lowering her voice into a whisper filled with pure rage. You have no idea what you've done. But I did. And that was the first moment she truly feared me. I picked up the termination letter from the floor, folded it calmly, and walked out of her office without looking back. The entire room stared as I walked to my desk. I gathered my things in silence, my mug, my notebook, my pens. A few people looked at me with sympathy, but no one dared say anything. They were still trapped in her shadow. When I stepped outside the building, the cold air hit my face like a slap. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality sink in. I had no job. No income. No safety net. Just truth and courage, two things that don't guarantee food or rent. But they were all I had. And somehow, they felt enough. As I walked home, each step felt heavy, but my heart felt strangely light. I wasn't defeated. I wasn't broken. I was free from her daily cruelty. And I had done the right thing. When I reached my apartment, exhaustion washed over me. I sat on my bed and finally let the tears fall, not out of fear, but out of release. Out of relief. Out of everything I had held inside for so long. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was Evan. Aurelia, are you okay? I heard what happened. I took a deep breath. She fired me. There was a short silence. Then he said, good. That means she's scared. And when people like her panic, they make mistakes. Hold on, Aurelia. The investigation is moving fast. And Helena, she won't escape this. His voice gave me strength I didn't know I needed. That night, as the city lights flickered outside my window, I realized something powerful. Losing everything is sometimes the first step to gaining justice. Helena thought she had won by firing me. But she had no idea that the real battle, the legal one, had already begun. And this time, I wasn't fighting alone. The next morning, I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest, but also a quiet strength humming under my skin, like a small fire refusing to die. The city outside my window was already alive, cars honking, people rushing to work, the distant sound of a train rumbling somewhere, but for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel scared of that noise. I felt ready for it. I sat on my bed, holding the small evidence folder that had almost gotten me fired, almost broken me, almost convinced me that I should stay silent. But now, when I looked at it, I didn't see fear. I saw truth. I saw my voice. And I saw the only weapon I had left to reclaim my life. I got dressed and headed straight to the legal aid office. The receptionist looked up in surprise when I entered, my face still tired, but my posture finally steady. A few minutes later, I found myself sitting in front of attorney Serena, a sharp-minded woman who carried an aura of calm power. She listened to every detail, how Dana framed me, how she hid evidence, how she humiliated me in front of the board. But she didn't interrupt. She didn't question my sanity. She didn't doubt my intentions. When I finished speaking, she leaned forward and said softly, Aurelia, what happened to you wasn't a workplace conflict. It was a violation. You don't need to be scared. You need to be strategic. Her words hit me deeper than she knew. No one had spoken to me like that in months, like I mattered. We opened the evidence file together, and as Serena sorted through each printout, each recording, each mismatched timestamp, I finally saw my own story from the outside. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things the way Dana tried to make me believe. I was a woman standing against a corrupt system run by a woman who smiled sweetly in public and destroyed quietly in private. Serena tapped one of the printed emails and said, "This alone proves data tampering." "And this recording? This is enough to start a formal complaint." For the first time, I felt my lungs expand without pain. I felt seen. That evening, as I walked back home across the crowded city bridge, the sun was setting behind the skyline, orange, gold, soft pink, painting the tall glass buildings in warm light. People brushed past me, talking, laughing, rushing, living, and I realized something profound. The city wasn't my enemy. Fear was. Silence was. And Dana, she had survived for years because women like me stayed quiet. But not anymore. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Serena, "Let's move forward. I'm ready to file the case." My hand was still trembling, but not from fear, from courage that was finally waking up. Later that night, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, the voice on the other end froze my spine. It was Dana. Her tone was cold, sharp, dripping with fake professionalism. "Aurelia," she began, "I heard you've been visiting lawyers. I'd advise you to think carefully. Some battles aren't worth fighting." Her words were meant to intimidate me, the same old manipulation she had used for months. But this time, I didn't shrink. I let her speak, and when she paused, expecting my silence, I replied quietly, "You're right, Dana. Some battles aren't worth fighting. But this one is." And then I ended the call. My hands shook, but my heart felt steady for the first time in a long time. When I lay down to sleep, I knew the hardest part was ahead: investigations, questions, retaliation, public pressure, but none of it scared me the way it once did. Because now, I wasn't alone. I wasn't lost. I wasn't broken. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the moment everything shifted. It was the moment I finally stopped letting someone else write my fate. It was the night I reclaimed my voice, and prepared myself for the courtroom battle that would change everything. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I expected. When I woke up, the city outside felt strangely quiet, as if holding its breath with me. For a moment, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the soft morning light slipping through my curtains. My hands trembled, not because I was afraid, but because I knew this day would decide everything: my career, my dignity, my voice, my future. I placed my palm over my chest and whispered to myself, "You made it this far. You can finish this." And for the first time in months, I believed those words. I reached the courthouse early. The massive building rose above me like a giant stone guardian, cold and intimidating, yet somehow welcoming, like it had seen countless stories of pain turn into justice. Serena met me at the entrance, looking confident, composed, and ready for battle. When she saw the fear flicker in my eyes, she rested a gentle hand on my shoulder and said, "Aurelia, this is your truth. No one can silence that today." Her reassurance wrapped around my heart like armor. Inside the courtroom, everything felt heavier: the polished wooden benches, the echo of footsteps, the murmur of lawyers preparing their arguments. And then Dana walked in. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect fake smile. She looked at me with that same cold superiority she always used, a silent message: "You can't win." But this time, I didn't look away. I held her gaze, steady, unshaken. Because I was no longer the girl she had crushed. I was the woman finally standing up to her. The hearing began. Dana's lawyer painted me as unstable, overly emotional, someone who misunderstood simple instructions. They called me inexperienced and confused. Each lie felt like a needle, sharp and cruel. But I did not flinch. Because I knew what was coming. Then Serena stood. Her voice was calm but powerful, slicing through the courtroom like light through darkness. She laid out everything: the fake timestamps, the altered files, the recording where Dana threatened me, the emails proving she made me take the blame for her own mistakes. Every piece of evidence hit the defense like a storm. And for the first time, I saw Dana's confidence crack. Her fingers twitched. Her jaw tightened. She shifted in her seat. Then came the moment I feared the most, when I had to take the stand. My heart raced as I walked to the witness box. I could hear my pulse in my ears, feel sweat on my palms, but I forced myself to breathe. I lifted my chin and began to tell my story. Every word felt like pulling stones from my chest, heavy, painful, emotional. I spoke about the humiliation, the gaslighting, the threats, the nights I cried alone, the days I doubted my sanity, the moment I almost walked away from my own dreams. And then I spoke about the moment I decided to fight back. The courtroom was silent. Not even a paper shuffled. Not even a whisper moved. When I finished, I looked toward the judge, and saw something in his eyes that made my throat tighten, understanding. After hours of arguments, questions, and evidence, the judge finally returned. The entire room held its breath. "Aurelia," he said, "the court finds in your favor. You were wrongfully accused, targeted, and retaliated against. Effective immediately, your name is cleared, and disciplinary action will be taken against Ms. Dana for misconduct." My breath shattered. Tears filled my eyes, warm, unstoppable, healing. Serena squeezed my hand, whispering, "You did it, Aurelia. You got your life back." Dana stood frozen, face pale, lips trembling. For the first time, she looked small. For the first time, she looked powerless. For the first time, she couldn't silence me. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the cold city wind brushed against my face, but it felt different, cleaner, lighter, almost like the universe had opened its arms for me. Cars rushed by, people hurried past me, but I just stood there, breathing freely, like the world had finally become mine again. I didn't win because I was fearless. I won because I refused to stay silent. And as I walked down the courthouse steps, I felt something bloom inside my chest, strength, freedom, and a future that finally belonged to me. Aurelia's story ended in justice, not revenge. In courage, not fear. In truth, not silence.